Now we are going to discuss about economic activity and non-economic activity. So most human beings perform several activities during a day. For example, they meet friends, spend time in shops, engage in political discussions, watch television and films, and do much more. But all activities are not the subject matter of economics. Economics studies only economic activity. Hence, it is important to understand the meaning of economic activity. So, what is called economic activity? Activity performed with the purpose of getting economic benefits in the form of incomes involving exchange of goods, services, or factors as well as involving cost is called economic activity. Important aspect about an economic activity pretend to purpose of making economic gains, satisfaction of some want and involvement of exchange and cost. Some example of economic activities are eating in a restaurant that is satisfy need by incurring expense, watching a movie in a theater, it is incur expense to get entertainment, work in one's own farm to exert labor and get output, and get employed in a school to teach that provide service and get a salary. Thus, human requirements are plenty. Activity for fulfillment of a requirement through a transaction which involves cost and benefits on both sides is called an economic activity. Farmers, lawyers, teachers, actors, governments all perform economic activities. The following chain of activity is another example to clarify the meaning of economic activity. A farmer needs a motorcycle in order to earn income to pay for the motorcycle. She or he works in his or her farm and sells the output for money. The sellers of motorcycle who earns money by selling the motorcycle spends it to fulfill some other wants. Now non-economic activity. So what is called non-economic activity? Activity which is performed without the specific purpose of obtaining economic gain, it means the benefit or financial, is called non-economic activity. It does not involve exchange of benefits on both sides of the transaction. For example, charitable activity or activities which are done out of love, affection, compassion, etc. These activities involves costs, but these costs are not incurred to get monetary or the financially benefits in exchange. These all are called expression. So these are the concept of economic activity and non-economic activity. Now to understand economics, first we should understand about the concept of economics. So concept of economy or the analysis of economics divided into two parts. One is called microeconomics and another is called macroeconomics. Microeconomics studies or the analyze individual sector or the unit, while the macroeconomics studied or analyze the whole. Microeconomics is the study of individual units of the economy. It studies the rational behavior of individual units. Microeconomics studies the behavior of individual units of the economy, and macroeconomics analyze uses the principle of marginalized to analyze how individual units make decisions. The unit of demand analysis is the consumer, that of supply analysis is the firm, and that of labor market is labor. And according to state example, subject of price determination of a product in a market, equilibrium output level for a firm, marginal productivity and wage determination of labor, as a factor of production are studied in microeconomics. Whereas in macroeconomics, it studies the issue which emerge from the entire economic setup and impact the entire economic setup. For example, determination of national income, unemployment, poverty, growth rate, and demographic profile of population are topics studied under microeconomics. Macroeconomics analysis has helped to give principle for resource management to increase national income, reduce unemployment, poverty, inflation, and so on. However, the behavior of individual income units impact the macroeconomic pattern, and the macroeconomic parameters impact the decision of individual economic unit. Now, presentation of information or data in economics, how these data are useful in economics, that is mentioned here. So, by the table we discussed this. This actually presented by the three ways. First, descriptive manner, second by the way of data tables, and third by the way of graphs. For instance, the description of relation between price of a commodity and its demand is stated as when price of a commodity falls, its demand expands and vice versa. This can be shown merely by presenting a data table showing a consumer's willingness to demand a commodity at different prices of the commodity. See the table here. You can see clearly. First, when the price is 20 rupees, demand is 20 rupees. Unit means when price decrease 15 rupees, demand units increase 40. When price more decrease 10 rupees, then demand increase more units 60 units. And finally price decrease to 5 rupees, then the commodity unit increase 80 rupees. This you can see clearly in this table. Now, by the graph, how could this represented? So you can see clearly that both the variable x-axis and y-axis are given in the graph. Y-axis represented the price of the commodity and the x-axis presented the demand in units. So this curve slopes downwards from left to right, showing that when variable on y-axis, which is the price of the commodity in rupees, falls, the variable on x-axis, which is demand for the commodity in units, extend. So left to right shows the negative relation between price and demand. When price decrease, demand increase. When price increase, demand decrease. Economics studies relationship between various economic parameters, and hence a cause effect relationship can be expressed by way of such graphs or diagram. Now, what is the importance of statistical information? That is here. So, statistical information supports or confirms a principle, whatever the principle are generated or created by the for the economics. This statistical information support to that principle. Philosophy of economy observe human behavior, and scientific tools in economic establish principles and theories. To test the validity of such theories in real life at different times and places, information for real life activity at such different times and places is necessary. Such information can be collected and presented in quantitative terms with the help of statistical tools. For example, statistical data on rainfall and agriculture production in a region at one time or at different times helps to understand the causes, effect, relationship between rainfall and agriculture production, which economic theory has already established. Likewise, data on price of a commodity and its demand can help to confirm the theoretical relationship established by economics between the two. Next is gives an idea about the changing trends of economic parameters. With the help of economic data, we can obtain an idea of the direction and magnitude of change in economic parameters. For example, we can know how sales revenue of a particular firm is changing, or we can know the trend of employment in a nation, or we can know the trends of production in different sectors of an economy, etc. Such data helps individual units to make appropriate decisions to increase their benefits and helps the government in making appropriate economic policies. Third one is to make comparative study easy. If appropriate statistical data are obtained, then comparison of parameter over different time periods across regions and across nations can be made. For example, we can compare growth rate of India's national income between 1951 and 2015. We can also compare India's macroeconomic parameters like per capita income, inflation, etc. with those of other countries like USA, UK, China, etc. And the last, to make precise presentation of facts. Sometimes facts about economic parameters can be represented more clearly with the help of statistical data and graphs. Graphs showing inflation, agriculture production, regional uh, disparities in incomes, etc., can give clear picture of their trends as compared to what description in word can do. Thus, it can be easily understood by lay person. So, these are the benefit of the statistical information. By that, different kind of principle generated, different kind of policies formed by the government. Now, some requisites expect in collecting statistical information and presenting it in diagram, graph, and chart. So, statistical information can be represented in the form of diagram, chart, and graph. These are helpful in explaining some economic principles, trends, and relationship in a simple and suggestive manner. Such a representation also becomes attention catching. While constructing such diagram, some particular must be carefully considered. Some rules must be followed carefully. Then you can represent statistically data. In that, sources of information and data. The sources of data must be reliable and universally acceptable to ensure their accuracy. This is the first rule. For instance, to obtain information regarding growth and development parameters in India, Economic Survey of India and data provided by Central Statistical Organization in a reliable source. To obtain comparative data for such parameter for different countries of the world, World Development Report is a reliable and universal acceptable source. Second, clarity regarding dependent and independent variable. When there is a cause affect relationship between variable, then the cause variable is treated as an independent variable and the effect variable is treated as a dependent variable as its value are dependent on the values of the independent variable. In such relationship, data pertaining to the independent variable must be represented on the x-axis and that pertaining to the dependent variable must be represented on the y-axis. Means the independent variable, the commodity which is independent, that you have to show on x-axis and the commodity which is dependent, that you have to show on y-axis. For instance, if we are examining the relationship between rainfall and agriculture production in region, the rainfall is the independent variable and represented on x-axis, and agriculture production is dependent on rain. That is why agriculture is dependent variable, therefore we represented on the y-axis. If we are examining production of different time period, then time period are represented on x-axis and the production on y-axis. In economics, in the law of demand, however, price, which is an independent variable, is represented on the y-axis, and demand, which is a dependent variable, is represented on x-axis. And the selecting appropriate scale is very important in a graph. In order to obtain a systematic graph with clarity and appropriate size, proper scales must be taken on both the axes. Scales are measures taken to represent actual data in diagram. If actual data is too large, say in 000 or in 00 means 100 or 1000, then such data cannot be directly represented in chart. Hence it is represented after converting it into measures on an appropriate scale. For example, in a diagram, a distance of 1 centimeter is equal to 10,000 units, or 1 centimeter is equal to 5 years, and so on. Such scales are taken on both the axes. Now, presenting quantitative numerical information in diagram and graphs. This is very important point that you have to study it well. So numerical data can be represented in different types of graphs and diagrams. Diagrams showing linear or non-linear relation are commonly used in economics. The demand curve is one such diagram. Some other types of chart, graphs, diagrams used frequently in economics are: first, bar diagram, this one; second is group bar diagram, this one; and third is pie diagram, etc., this one. So first we learn about the bar diagram. A bar diagram, also known as the bar chart or bar graph, is a diagram which represents grouped data with rectangular bars with length proportional to the values which they represented. For example, production of wheat in India. So you can see in table that in 71 it was 23.8 lakh tons. After a decade 80-81 36.3 lakh tons. After a decade 1991 it was 55.1 lakh ton. In 2001 it was 69.7 lakh ton, and 2010 and 11 it was 86.9 lakh ton. So it's clearly seen into this bar graph. See the data properly here, so you can understand this properly. Now, group clustered bar diagram. These charts are used when the dependent variable is grouped in more than one category. For example, when we want to examine the literacy rates for different years in Gujarat, we can use a group bar chart to show male, female, and total literacy rates as three categories in one group for 1 year. Bar for each category can be shaded or colored differently. So see the table. In 51 there was a 30.17 lakh male was there. Percentage, it is given in percentage, and female was literate only 12.79%. So total literacy rate of Gujarat in 1951 was 21.09%. In 61, 36.19, 71, 41.84, 81, 52.20%, 91, 61.29%, 2001, 69.14%, and 2011 it increased and reaches to 79.31%. This you can show in the group clustered bar diagram like this. Studied it well. Then after pie diagram, this is the example of pie diagram. A pie chart is a circular statistical graph which is divided into sectors to illustrate the numerical proportion of data. The numerical data is proportionally converted into degrees in a circle, and sectors are formed considering those degrees. For example, the shares of different sectors in India's national income. So there are mainly three sectors of economy. First is agriculture, then after industries, and then after service sector. This one, service sector. So this clearly you can see here. So agriculture's participation in the national income was 13.9%, this one. Then after industries 26.2%, this one. And the service sector 59.9%, this one. So these all sectors gives us the idea of our economy, that India is developing nation or developed nation. Like that, by this kind of pie graph you can justify any nation of the world's and its economic condition. Now what is the importance of economics? So in a modern world, almost all goods of human needs have become economic goods, owing to increasing use and scarcity, and thus all activities of human beings are increasingly becoming economic activities. Hence the relevance of economics as a philosophy as well as a science is increasing in human life. Economics is important to understand behavior of human beings, society and state while managing everyday activities, and scientific theories and principles guiding professional decision making. Understanding everyday behavior. So how does we understand the behavior? It is useful in understanding everyday behavior of human beings, society and state while managing routine tasks. Economics helps in understanding everyday behavior in the following ways. Understanding international events. Some international events affect lives of people in several countries like USA, Russia, China, etc. People try to understand the impact of rise in price of crude oil in international market on their own cost of living. People also try to understand why some countries are more developed and others are less developed. Thus, in modern times, with increasing information available to public owing to continuously improving technology, the scope of economics in everyday life is expanding. Second, understanding historical events. Knowledge of economics helps to understand historical events better. Economics helps to understand better the reason behind wars, the entry of East India Company in India for trade and the resultant British Raj, India's revolts against goods made in England during British rule, labor movement, etc. Now, the actual importance of the economy is it helps to decision making by individuals. People from all walks of life like households, lawyers, actors, singers and others try to get maximum gains from the efforts which they make. They try to manage their time and resources in an optimum manner to increase their gains. In a way, they all indulge in economic decision making knowingly or unknowingly. Second, understanding government policies. To understand various policies of a state like tax policy, wage policy, and so on, knowledge of economics is useful. People take decision according to the bank's rates declared by the Reserve Bank of India. Repo rates and reserve repo rates guide decision making regarding saving and investment. And last, this one, professional decision making. Economics is useful in knowing scientific principles and theories which guide professional decision making. Revenue and cost as well as demand and supply are concepts which are used in all type of economic activities. Certain theories of economics helps business in day-to-day decision pertaining to price determination, wage determination, employment of various factors of production, and so on. Economics provides knowledge regarding the impact of certain decisions. For example, it provides insights into questions like what happens if price is reduced in a market with very high degree of competition. Economics is a science which provides insights for day-to-day decision making. All human beings play a role as a consumer, producer, or labor from time to time in life. Economics helps them to take rational decision for maximizing gains by minimizing cost. So these are the details of this chapter. The exercise is given that you have to solve by your own self. Here some glossary words means the actual meaning of the words are given here. For example, economic activity, microeconomics, macroeconomics, pie chart, analysis, exchange, scientific method, specialization, positive method, normative science. These are the important words of this chapter that you have to read and remember, which helps you to understand the another chapter. So this is the formal detail of chapter number 1, economics and introduction. In next video we will study about chapter number 2, fundamental concepts and terminologies of economics. Thank you.